It's great to be here this morning. It's good to see each one of you here. This is a month where we're celebrating gratitude. Gratitude. I love that thought. It's especially appropriate as we're heading into Thanksgiving. But as I was thinking about Thanksgiving in this coming week, I thought about another term that I heard, which is called Thanksliving, which I seem to like a little bit better. Thanksgiving is one of my favorite holidays. It's one of those where you get to eat a lot, which I enjoy. It's one of those where you gather with family and you celebrate being together with your family and your friends. And it's an opportunity that we have to just celebrate the goodness of this world. After the way things have gone in the last few years, things have been kind of heavy. Things have changed a lot. Things are very different. And it's good to be able to get together and celebrate the good in this world and to celebrate all that's going on that's great in the world. And we have that opportunity this week. But when we think about Thanksgiving turning into Thanksliving, we think about gratitude every day. It's that ability that we have to be grateful for everything that happens in our life, even those things that we question and go, and why to. We can be grateful for all that we have in this world. And it's being grateful every day. And when we learn to view the world as a source of positivity and a source of compassion, then we're able to open that door to abundance and to inner joy and to source that we've talked about this month. There's so many things that in our time of Thanksgiving that we can see and that we can be grateful for. So as I was preparing for my talk today, I read this story. And I have this amazing habit of reading the most odd stories when I'm trying to prepare, because I'm one of those people who's ADHD. If you're not familiar with that, talk to me later. So I'm starting to read one thing, and then that leads me over here, and then that leads me over here, and then that leads me over here. So as I was preparing to talk about gratitude this morning, I read a story about a drug-sniffing dog. Yeah, didn't make sense to me either in the beginning. So I'm reading this story, and they're telling me how they train drug-sniffing dogs to work at the airport. And they say that they put the smell that they want them to identify under the dog's nose, and they leave it there until the dog can smell that. Even when there are other distractions and other things in the way, the dog smells that particular drug, and that's what they're trained to look for. And then they practice with the dog, so they hide the drug somewhere. And even with other distractions and other things going on, no matter what's presented, they get the dog to smell that scent. So I thought that was kind of fascinating, that we have that opportunity and we have that thought coming into my brain that goes, what does that have to do with anything? And then it hit me that that's the way we need to be. We need to be bloodhounds for the good in this world. We need to look at it and see it and smell it and touch it and be so used to it that that's what we notice every time something comes up. That's the part that we're seeing when we're in the midst of something going on that's not necessarily the best in the world at the moment for us. Psychologist Rick Hanson said, our minds are like Velcro for negative experiences and Teflon for positive ones. Which means we hang on to that negative stuff. Ooh, yeah, we do. And we let those good things just swish right on by us. So we need to learn to hang on to the good, to hang on to the positive, to hang on to all the things that are great in our lives. And as we start to hang on to that, then we can, no matter what's going on, no matter what's happening in our life, we can see the good that is coming about. We can see the positive in it. There's a verse in Philippians that says, finally, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is commendable, if there is any excellence, if there is anything worthy of praise, think on these things. So as we train ourselves for Thanksgiving and that gratitude for every day and everything that's happening in our world, May we learn to look at these things, and may we begin to see these things, those good things that are there. So behind door number 4 in gratitude for this week is grace. And that's a part of what I see when I see Thanks Living. There's grace that I have, the grace that God gives me, but also the grace that I can give to you. And more importantly, this morning, what I want us to think about is the grace that we can give to ourselves. There was a shirt on a television show that I saw this week that said, "Give yourself grace." How important is that? Give yourself grace. In the Greek, grace is defined as a divine influence on our lives and a reflection in our daily life. A divine influence on our lives and a reflection in our daily life. So not just a part of who we are as divine beings, but a reflection of how we live our life every day. And I think most of us are pretty good at saying, God was gracious to me. And I think most of us can be fairly good at giving grace to others. But I really think we fail when it comes to giving grace to ourselves. So that's what I want to talk about this morning. How do we give grace to ourselves? Grace in the Daily Word from a couple of weeks ago was power and presence of God made manifest through words and actions of people just like me. We choose to give ourselves grace. We choose to claim the grace that God is giving us. We choose to hold on to that grace. Martha Creeks defines grace as God realized, actualized, and continuously expressing. There's that grace that is there for us. There's a grace that is in this world that brings to us pleasant and wonderful thoughts and memories and things that we can accomplish that we maybe didn't think we could to begin with. But we have grace to do those things. Now, I always like talking about Grace because that's my mom's name. My mother was named Mary Grace. Her mother was named Grace Marie. I'm told had I been a girl, that would have been my name, whether I liked it or not. Thankfully, I'm not, and thankfully they decided Grady was not the name I was going to get along the process. So they came up with better names for me than some of the ones that I am told were on that list. And I am grateful for that. But when I think about my mom and I think about my grandmother, what I think about is how they showed me how to live a life of grace. Grace that they had, that they shared with others. And as I was reading scripture in Luke 10, verses 38 through 42, I found 2 other ladies who were known for grace. Differently, perhaps. Says, as Jesus and his disciples were on their way, he came to a village where a woman named Martha opened her home to him. She had a sister called Mary, who sat at Jesus' feet listening to what he said. But Martha was distracted by all the preparations that had to be made. She came to him and asked, "Lord, don't you care that my sister has made me do all the work by myself? Tell her to help me." And Jesus answered her, "Martha, you are worried and upset about many things, but few things are needed, or indeed only one. Mary has chosen what is better, and I will not take it from her." So we all know Marthas and Marys in our life. I would ask you to raise your hand if you're like me and you're usually a Martha, but I don't want to embarrass anybody. Because a lot of us are those who are so worried about getting all the preparations done and making sure everything is just perfect before we do something that we forget about the thing that we were doing it for. I don't know about you. A part of my ADHD self is that sometimes I love to plan a good party, and I love to get everything ready for it, and then I love to not go to it. I'm perfectly happy to get everything prepared and have it all ready for it. But I'm also perfectly happy not to have to spend that time with it. That's probably more the introvert part of me than anything else coming out. But there's times when I am very much like Martha, where I am the one who is going to get everything prepared and everything ready, and I forget what it is that I'm actually supposed to be doing. And what I'm supposed to be doing is sitting at the feet of Jesus, learning, being in the now moment, not worried about what's going to happen later on. A part of grace is us having that ability. Mary and Martha both were basically doing exactly what they thought they were supposed to be doing. But Martha got upset. She became the worrier in the group, not listening to the truth that Jesus was teaching, but worrying about what was going to happen next and what was supposed to be next. And when she went to Jesus and said, "Make her help me," Jesus said, "No. Not going to make you help her. Not going to make her help you." Mary is doing exactly what she's supposed to be, which is listening to the teachings of the great teacher, listening to the one who has come forward to teach us. And Martha is worried about all the other things. So we have a lot of Marthas in the world, and I am grateful for them. But we need to learn balance. We can be Martha and get things right and make sure everything that needs to be taken care of is done. And then we can sit at the feet of Jesus and learn. We can be a truth seeker and do that as well as being both. So I think it's important as we think about Mary and we think about Martha and who they are in this world, what is it that they were trying to do? And one of the things that came to me was that in the time that Mary and Martha were both there, they both had before them that day a blank canvas. A canvas that was just nothing on it. A completely empty canvas that they got to fill with whatever they wanted to that day. I think that is grace. Every morning I get to wake up to a new canvas. I don't need to worry about what happened yesterday because honestly there's not a thing I can do about it most of the time. Recently I made a mistake at work. And I believe if you're going to make a mistake, make a big one. So I sent some numbers to the president's office at the university, and one of them was wrong. And he called and went, "Hey, Hank, about that one number." That's how I found out I sent the wrong number. So it took me a moment. And at that moment, I was not in the mood to give myself grace. I was in the mood to fix it. And then the next morning when I woke up, there's nothing I can do about that. Move on. It's a new day. I have a blank canvas in front of me. So we get to choose every morning what we do with that blank canvas. And we get to choose whether we're going to paint with black ink, black paints and white paints and make shadows and do things in those colors, or we can throw the bright colors of the world onto our palette and we can paint in those colors, and we can choose exactly what it is we're going to do every day. That is God's grace allowing us a new day every day. When we wake up, we get to start over. There's no reason to worry about what we had to do yesterday or what we're supposed to do tomorrow. May not ever get tomorrow to happen. So let's worry about today. Let's not worry about it. That's a bad choice of words. Let's deal with today. Let's be in the moment. Let's be in the present moment as Mary was in the present moment. But Mary and Martha both had that same blank canvas, and they chose differently what they were going to put on that canvas. We get to choose that every day of our lives. And I want to say again, thank you to our board who put together yesterday's work, and to Kathy who was leading yesterday's work, and to others who were there. Thank you all who could be there for being there. Because you see, this church has a blank canvas right now too. And we forget that sometimes. But no matter what's happened in the past, as Reverend Roxanne said at our anniversary, there's the ebb and flow of churches, and that's true of everything, not just churches, people too. But we have that ebb and flow, and as we look out, we have a blank canvas that we now get to fill. What is next for Unity of Central Florida? We get to make that decision, and we get to be a part of that decision-making process. And I invite you to be an active part of that process. I apologize, I couldn't be here yesterday, but I know there was a great crowd because I saw pictures. So I invite you to be a part of it, to be a part of our planning process as we move forward and step forward into the grace that God has given us. We need to move forward. We need to start painting on that canvas. In my opinion, we need to start painting with some really bright, beautiful colors and decide what is next for us. Just as we do for ourselves as individuals, we need to do that as a church. I'll share some things more about myself. I am one of those people who doesn't like uncertainty. Uncertainty drives me crazy. It's one of those things that I've never been comfortable with, and I don't take a lot of risk. And when I do, I'm generally uncomfortable. I'm sure I'm not the only one in here who fits that category. I am one of those people who follows rules, and that works out well for my job because I do compliance all day. So that fits. Everybody follows the rules, right? Yes, we do. Shake your head yes, even if you don't. Everybody follows the rules. So that works for me. But it doesn't always work in my personal life. Every now and then, my friends and my relatives would like for me to take a chance on something. So I did. This past Monday, a bunch of my friends were going to the Pink concert, which was out in the open at Camping World Stadium. And I agreed not only to go, but to park way down the road and walk all the way there and back. I was actually nervous going there. Sounds silly. But as I was thinking, it hit me that that's a part of grace. I don't need to worry about that kind of stuff. I get to choose how I'm going to react to things in my life. I had a great time. And I need to choose that fun part on occasion. I need to choose to paint in bold colors and to color my canvas in ways that are exciting with shading and shadows and all of those other kind of things, and forget that routine. Because when I'm not forgetting that, then I become one of those paint by number people. Y'all familiar with that? You paint what you're told, the color you're told, and it's going to be a pretty picture when you're done. We get those choices in life. We can work on that blank canvas, or we can follow someone else and work on paint by numbers. Either way, it's going to be pretty when we're done. But God's grace gives us the chance to choose which of those we're going to go with. I want you to say this with me. I give myself grace. I give myself grace. Mark Twain said, 20 years from now, you will be more disappointed by the things you didn't do than the ones you do. So throw off your bow lines, sail away from the safe harbor, and catch the trade winds in your sails. Explore, dream, and discover. That is our opportunity as a church. That is our opportunity as individuals. One of the other things that came to me as I was thinking about grace is not only do I get to paint, but I get to take a pause. A deep, sacred pause. Where when I'm in the middle of doing something and it's not going exactly the way I wanted it to, I get to just stop and breathe. Thank you. Recenter yourself. Put yourself right back into the flow by taking that pause and taking that breath and getting ready to move forward. Get ready to take another deep breath if necessary and be ready to move forward and to go forward in your day. Y'all know who Bob Ross is? The guy who painted on public television with the fluffy hair. So if you learn about his history, he spent the first 20 years of his life, of his working life, in the military. And he said that after that, he would never do anything again that required him to yell at people or to be upset or to be tense all the time. So he took up painting. And he started painting. And if you remember his show, somewhere in the middle of his picture, he would always hit it with white paint. And he would go, "Oh, I've made a mistake." But he told an interviewer with NPR that he never really made a mistake. That he did that on purpose in every painting because he wanted everybody to know that no matter what mistake you make, you can put it into your beautiful painting and it comes out perfectly. That is God's grace for us. No matter what mistake we've made, we can be perfect. You are perfect as you are. I tell you that every time I speak. I hope you're eventually going to believe it if you don't already. Just as you are perfect. There is nothing else that you need to do. You are perfect as you are. You might think, well, I need to do this and I want to do this. Yeah, that's great. And you might become even more perfect than you already are. But you are perfect today as is. And when you make a mistake, we can blend it into our painting and we can make it a perfect part of our life. Sometimes we find ourselves in situations where nothing and none of our strategies are working, and we just need to take a deep breath. We need to pause and we need to think about what it is that's going to be next for us. And that's when we take that deep breath. When we're frenetic and everything's going wrong, stop. Take a deep breath. When the president calls your office at work, pause. Take a deep breath. Everything works out for the way it's supposed to work out. I believe in divine order. Things are going to be the way things are going to be. Now, I can mess with divine order because I'm human and I have free will, but it's still going to work in the end, and we're still going to be our perfect selves in the end. Take a breath. Feel how it calms you. When you're in the middle of these things that are going on in your life, these things that are going on in your life, we can take that breath. And sometimes we can take a really long, deep breath and then meditate. Now again, I know I'm the only one that this affects, but sometimes when I sit down to meditate, everything on God's green earth goes through my brain. I'm trying to calm myself and to be quiet and to quieten my brain. And instead, my grocery list pops up. What I need to do later on this afternoon pops up. What I'm doing tomorrow pops up, and none of that matters. We dismiss that. We take a breath, and we start over with our time of meditation. We start over in that time of quiet where we're just listening to God and listening to the message that God has for us. Sometimes we need to take longer breaks, and we need to get out in nature. You need to put your feet in the grass. I highly encourage that. When I can't deal with anything else in the world on this particular day, I go for walks. They're used to seeing me walk around the building at work. Just take a break. Go outside, put your feet in the grass, and feel nature. Let that be a part of your break. And sometimes take a sabbatical, take a longer break if you need to. Let go of all the things you're responsible for. And just take a breath. Sometimes when we're dealing with other people, we need to take a breath. Sometimes what they're saying might agitate us. Or it may be that we're just not even paying attention. That instead of listening to them, we're thinking about what we're going to say next and what's going to come up next and how we're going to do things next. And reality is we just need to take that deep, sacred breath and listen. Most people don't want our advice. We know that, right? Most people just want us to listen to them because we need to say that which is bottling up inside of us, and we need to let it out. Take a deep breath. Take a pause. Move on to what is next. As you awaken and you see your blank canvas, think of all the wonderful things that you can do on that canvas. Think of the grace of God and the grace that you have to start over today. Every day is a new beginning. Every day is a new start. And we get to take that moment and breathe when we need to and move forward. There's a poem called the Knots Prayer, and I want to close with it this morning. Said that this prayer is scribbled on the wall of a prison. They don't know who wrote it, but it's an interesting prayer. It says, "Dear God, please untie the knots that are in my mind, my heart, and my life. Remove the have-nots, the cannots, and the do-nots that I have in my mind. Erase the will-nots, may-nots, might-nots that might find a home in my heart. Release me from the could-nots, would-nots, and should-nots that obstruct my life. And most of all, dear God, I ask that you remove from my mind, my heart, and my life all of the am-nots, that I've allowed to hold me back, especially the thought that I am not good enough. You are always good enough. All good, all good, all God, all love. Let us rise together. And so it is. Amen.